Hey, it's Donny A. Today we're going to talk about how all the triads for the chords that are in a key can be found in one shape of the pentatonic scale. And if you didn't already know it, you're already playing them if you're playing a pentatonic scale. At least you're soloing over them. All right, let's dive in. So you have we're going to do this out of a C major key or an A minor key. They have the same chords because they're relative major and minors. So if you have your form 1 pentatonic, which is your A minor pentatonic or your C major pentatonic, you have 5, 8, 5, 7, 5, 7, 5, 7, 5, 8, 5, 8. And hopefully you know that scale. But what we're going to do here is we're going to show you where the triads are within that scale so that it can help you with your soloing, and it could also help you if you're just playing lead guitar and or you're in a band with 2 guitar players and you don't want to play the same, same C chord and the same exact chords, or you don't want to play the big bar chord, you kind of want to sit in the pocket. You could play triads instead. That really helps in a band, and it's going to help with soloing to know that you don't even have to move your hand and you can hit all of these triads for all of the chords within the key. So let's start with a progression. We're going to do a 1, 5, 6, 4 progression, and the reason we're going to pick that is because it's one of the most popular progressions. The 1, 4, 5, and the 6 chord specifically are the most used chords in Western music. So if you have your one chord in a C major scale or a C major key is a C. So let's just go through the chords. You have a C as your 1, D minor is your 2, E minor is your 3, F major is your 4, G major is your 5, and then A minor is your 6, and then your 7th chord is diminished. We're not going to go into that today. But basically what you have is when you have a C chord, all of these triads are just pieces of larger chords. So you have a C major bar chord right here on the 3rd fret of the A string is your C root note for your C major bar chord. So then if you take that off, you have a triad right here that you're holding down. And that triad is your 5th fret of your D, G, and B string. So there's your 1 chord. You have a C right there. So if we have our 1 chord, we need to know where our 1 note is, which if you're in a pentatonic scale, your 1 is here on your form 1 on the 8th fret of the low E string. So you'd have 1, 2 is the 5th fret of the A string, 3 is the 7th fret of the A string. So that's 1, 2, 3, 5, because you do not have a 4 or a 7 in a pentatonic scale. So you have your 1, 2, 3, 5 is the 5th fret of the D string, 6 is your 7th fret of your D string, and then you have a 1 again. And we're going to stay up on these upper strings for the most part. So now that you know your 1 is here, so now you know that you have a 1, you have a 2, then your 3, and then your 4 would be here, but that's not part of the scale, and then you have a 5 here. So now we know where our 5 note is, and it's on the B string, and it's the 8th fret. So you have a 1 here, and then if you're on the B string, you always know that for the B string, your triad shape is going to be your D major shape, which would be, you have on the G string, your 7th fret, 8th fret on the B string, and then 7th fret on the E string. That 7th fret on the E string is not within the pentatonic scale, but it is within the key. It is within the major scale of a C major scale. So it is your 7th note of your chord, and you can use it when you're soloing over a B or a 5 chord. You can use that 7th note when you're soloing over a 5 chord, because if you're playing that, it's available to you. So now you have your 1, you have your 5, now we need a 6. We know our A note is here on the top, on the low E string, so that means that A note is here. We have our A major bar guitar chord, which this whole form is built off of. So then the top of this, the top 3 notes on the G, B, and E string makes your triad. So that's the 5th fret on the G, B, and E makes a triad, and then you also have a 6 here or an A here, which is an extension of that triad, right? So now you have a 6, and then if you want a 4, we knew that we had a 1, 2, 3, 4 is a half step away from your 3, so it's right here. Now that we know it's on our B string, we know it's a D major shape. So there's our 4. So if you were gonna play in the pocket as a second guitar player, you're strumming a C chord, now you got your G chord, A minor chord to F. Hardly moving your hand because it's all within this one form. If you're gonna solo over it, you have your 1, and then you go to your 5, and then to your 6, to your 4. Back to your 1. So I hope that was helpful. You can play around a lot with this, and you can work around with, like, you can go from a 1 to a 6, which would be your 1 to your C to your A minor would be a 1 to a 6, and you could just play around with that. You could just put a looper on and just play over an E until you get comfortable with this. You could put a progression on and try and play between them. But when you're working on solo in between them, you can go from, 1 to a 5 and back, and just keep doing 2 chords back until you feel like adding in a 3rd chord, until you're comfortable with it. We had 2 more chords that we didn't go over. They weren't in our progression. They are the 2 chord and the 3 chord, which are both minor. So we had our 1 right here on the 5th fret of the G string, and then we have our 2 a whole step up. So as our 2 is right here, we have our chord right underneath it, and that is part of your D minor. Your D minor is your 2, and the top part of that chord is the triad. So that is your 7th fret on your G, your 6th fret on your B, and your 5th fret on your E. That makes up your minor chord. So you had your C, your D minor, and then your E minor is your 3, and your triad is just a whole step up. So we had our 1 note, 2, 3. So your 3 chord is right here, and that's your 9th fret of your G, your 8th fret of your B, and your 7th fret of your high E. So you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And everything's right there to play with. If you like this content, please like and subscribe.